We want to have a procedure that we can follow to solve linear equations in one variable. And here's a suggested procedure. There are other procedures that could be followed, other steps that we could follow to solve linear equations in one variable. This is one that I'm suggesting to you. If you have one that you have found to work well for you and you have success with it, perfectly free to use that. But if you've struggled with solving linear equations in one variable correctly in the past, I'd like to suggest this possible procedure to you. We want to go from problem to solution, and we want to kind of go step by step to make sure we get there and get there correctly. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to concentrate on 6 words or phrases here. Fractions, parentheses, expressions, only one variable term, isolate, coefficient. Now let me tell you what I mean by each of those. What do we mean by fractions? Well, if there are any fractions in our equation, in our linear equation in one variable, we want to eliminate those fractions by multiplying both sides of the equation by the least common denominator of the fractions. That will eliminate the fractions, which for many people would be a plus, because many people struggle still with dealing with fractions, and especially when you throw them in with variables and an equation, it can at times be a little daunting. So we want to eliminate those fractions right up front. Then we want to go to the next step and look to see, are there any parentheses in our equation? If there are, we want to use our distributive property to remove those parentheses in the equation. That will free up all of the terms in our expressions, so we can go to that next step of simplifying the expressions in the equation by combining the like terms that might be within those expressions. Once we've done that, we will have the expressions on each side of the equation as simple as they possibly can be, and then we can examine them to see if there's a variable term on each side of the equation. If there is, that's a problem for us, because we only want one variable term in our equation in order to go on to finish solving and get from problem to solution. So if there is a variable term on both sides of the equation, we want to remove one of them by adding or subtracting that term from both sides of the equation. That will cause one of the terms to disappear and leave us only one variable term in the equation. Now, we need to isolate that one remaining variable term. Perhaps it has a constant term that has been added to it or subtracted from it. We need to remove that constant term so that we will have the variable term that we are solving for completely isolated. And then we can look at the coefficient of that variable term and make the coefficient of the variable term positive 1 by either dividing or multiplying by whatever the coefficient currently is. Following these 6 steps will get us from problem to solution when we're dealing with linear equations in one variable. If you want a little memory device, a little mnemonic device that might help you remember those words, give you something silly to think about that might trigger that memory, think about frantic for fractions, partiers for parentheses, excitedly for expressions, open for only one variable term, icy for isolate, and cokes for coefficient. So frantic partiers, excitedly open, icy cokes should help us remember the procedure that we follow to solve linear equations in one variable.